Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and his Czech counterpart Petr Pavel honored fallen soldiers at the memorial of the Moschun Defenders on Friday. According to Assosicted Press, the leaders observed a minute of silence for the Ukrainian defenders who died during the Battle of Moschun in March 2022. During the moment of silence, the names of 118 soldiers who died in the battle were read out.
We have created it to memorize all the heroes that died, so 125 fallen soldiers who sacrificed their lives in order to lives here. They will also be memorized at this memorial. Also, you can see here there is the QR code that was printed, but they were unsuccessful because we also Ukrainian armed forces from Russian 35th Army and 36th Army started from the Belarus, because Russians, when they were not successful, they just had the artillery shelling.
Ukrainian General Mikhailo Drapati, after stabilizing the situation on the front, managed to set the stage for decisive counterattacks that turned the tide of battle in the most critical sector of the front line, Pokrovsk, Euromaidan press media outlet reports. Drapati led an intense campaign against Russian logistics, turning supply routes into death traps and drastically slowing their advance. He rotated brigades off the front line, reinforced positions with experienced fighters, and improved coordination, allowing Ukrainians to build and hold new defensive lines. With these defenses in place, Russian forces were unable to find meaningful gains anywhere, as they continued to throw their men into frontal, meat-grinder assaults. According to Euromaidan press media outlet, at the same time, the Russian counter-offensive to push the Ukrainians out of Kursk was in full swing, defended against by some of the most elite and well-equipped Ukrainian combat brigades. This was the last thing Russians needed, as the Ukrainian defense in Kursk continued to deal more and more casualties to Russian forces. Many reserves that the Russian High Command preferred to send to Pokrovsk would have to be sent to Kursk instead, as the elite VDV and Naval Infantry Corps of the Russian Army continued to suffer devastating losses at Kursk. However, this was coming at a significant cost to the Russian efforts at Pokrovsk, as Russians were suffering a casualty rate nearly twice as high in this direction, taking over 15,000 losses, of which 7,000 were killed during January alone. With Russians running low on reserves, they resorted to desperate measures at Pokrovsk. Russians started sending the wounded to frontline positions and on active assault operations more and more frequently. Recognizing the situation was shifting in their favor, Drapati ordered his forces to prepare a decisive series of counterattacks in the Pokrovsk direction, planning to implement the lessons he learned from his previous offensives into this situation. Euromaidan press recalls, during the 2022 Kherson counteroffensive, Drapati led the main Ukrainian advance toward the city, identifying weak points in Russian lines and deploying fast-moving armored units in thunder run tactics deep behind enemy positions. His men credit his leadership as playing a key role in the eventual liberation of Kherson, as he gained significant popularity amongst Ukrainian people for his actions. After stabilizing Pokrovsk, Drapati identified key Russian weaknesses on the western flank after taking command in January 2025. Like at Kherson, he ordered a massive logistics striking campaign, but this time using massive amounts of drones, which he did not have at Kherson. Because of this, Russian supply lines collapsed, increasingly using horses, donkeys and camels, even handcuffing their soldiers together to prevent desertions, while cramming troops into pickup trucks to keep up the unsustainable tempo of assaults. This resulted in the Ukrainian forces effectively retaking lost territories in the Pokrovsk direction for the first time in over 1.5 years of constant defense. What is even more significant is that the counterattacks restored control over the most important and well-fortified parts of the defense line in the front of Pokrovsk, pushing Russians back into the empty fields. Overall, the appointment of Mikhailo Drapati as the commander of Ukrainian forces near Pokrovsk allowed them to retake the initiative in one of the most difficult parts of the front and go on the offensive. Recently, US President Donald Trump agreed with dictator Vladimir Putin on a truce between Ukraine and Russia in attacks on energy facilities. The Kremlin agreed to this because Ukrainian strikes were causing it a lot of problems. This was confirmed by the Russian Telegram channel Spy Dossier, which is linked to the Russian army. It reported 5 successful strikes by the Ukrainian armed forces in recent weeks, which the Kremlin tried to hide. On March the 8th, Ukrainian UAVs successfully hit a petroleum product raw material base in the Leningrad region of the Russian Federation in the city of Kyiv. A 10,000 cubic meter diesel tank completely burned out. A day later, on March the 9th, the Ryazan oil refinery in the city of Ryazan came under attack. The oil pipeline and pumping equipment were damaged. On March the 11th, Ukrainian UAVs hit the Unecha oil pumping station in Bryansk region. The consequences are unknown. On March the 14th, a marine fuel terminal of the Rosneft company in the city of Tuapse in the Krasnodar region was attacked. A tank with gasoline with a capacity of 20,000 cubic meters burned. On March the 17th, the target was the Astrakhan gas processing plant of the Gazprom company. A fire broke out on an area of about 1,000 square meters. Since September 2023, Ukraine has been systematically attacking oil refineries and oil depots deep in Russia's rear. By the end of 2024, the number of confirmed attacks exceeded 100. These actions are aimed at undermining the economically important energy sector of the Russian Federation, which, in turn, puts pressure on the country's financial stability and its ability to continue aggression against Ukraine. The intensity of Ukrainian drone attacks on Russian oil refineries increased significantly in January 2025. Experts note that such attacks weaken the Russian military machine. Recently, the Kremlin reiterated that Putin had ordered his military to pause strikes on energy infrastructure and claimed that a similar command was not given in Ukraine. We are closely monitoring whether the Kiev regime will heed the firm commitment of the presidents of Russia and the United States to take gradual steps toward a peace resolution, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters. Russia's defense ministry claimed that at the moment Putin's order to halt attacks was issued, 7 Russian drones were already airborne and targeting Ukrainian energy facilities in the Mykolaiv region. Russian air defense forces were ordered to neutralize the drones. 6 were shot down by Pantsir air defense systems, while 1 was intercepted by an airborne Russian fighter jet, the ministry said.